What's up, investors? Welcome to another episode of the WTF Report, bringing you the latest and greatest news that directly impact our financial markets and, more importantly, our portfolios. This week, there really wasn't a lot of news coming out when it comes to industry-specific or stock-specific news, but the markets were moving around so much, mainly because of President Trump's tweets and Nancy Pelosi and Steven Mnuchin talking about the next stimulus package. So, without further ado, my name's Ayan with AQ Markets, and you're watching this week's WTF Report. Summary was really good. This week we had the Dow Jones around 2.4%, we had the S&P 500 around 3%, and we had the Nasdaq, the big winner of this week, up 3.5%. And like I mentioned, it had everything to do with stimulus talk, and nothing really else was happening this week that caused this. So this episode is going to be very driven on how news and how words can directly impact the market, as opposed to actual financials or actual industrial changes that happen within a certain industry or company. So we're going to learn about that right now. So the stock market has been really just waiting on this second round of stimulus. And as I mentioned a long time ago, the stimulus was first introduced around the beginning of August. They were trying to get it around August 14th. It kept getting delayed. There was a lot of back and forth arguing. Democrats, Republicans couldn't agree. And then when finally the stimulus talks got really dissolved, we did see the market go down quite substantially. But when they said that they're going to resume talks, the market goes back up. When they say they're going to have problems with the talks, the market goes down. Now, this is strictly off of news, and this is strictly off of people's words. So let's start off with the beginning of the week. So let's start off on Monday. Nothing really crazy happened on Monday. It was kind of a normal day in the stock market, a little bit up and down here and there. But then come Tuesday, we had President Trump tweet in the middle of the day saying that they're going to halt negotiations for the next stimulus package and they're going to wait until after the election. That sent the markets straight up nosediving. We were up around pretty much 0.5% of the day, and we ended up dropping around 2% by the end of the day. As you can see by the chart, you just see this massive dip that happened at around 2:30 in the afternoon. So everyone was watching was like, oh, that's not good. However, the same night at around 3 a.m., so this is Wednesday time, he kind of started tweeting out saying that they're going to start doing individual packages for the airline industry. They're going to do individual packages for the PPP loan extensions, and that's where things started to get a little bit funky. Now, come Wednesday, there was a little bit of a misunderstanding. They weren't necessarily cutting off the negotiating talks completely. I guess they were just playing hardball, I guess. So around Wednesday and Thursday, Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, and Nancy Pelosi, they decided to resume the talks, and they kept going back and forth. The Democrats were proposing a $1.6 trillion deal, and then come Friday, we found out that the White House set up an ultimatum saying, here's a $1.8 trillion deal, take it or leave it, and that's where we ended the week. Following that massive dip that we saw on Tuesday, we then saw a massive resurgence because the stimulus talk was coming back out. We saw that initially the Republicans were hesitant on doing something above $1 trillion. They were looking around $750 billion. The Democrats wanted to do a $2.4 trillion deal. They went back down. The Democrats are now saying 1.6, and then now we're seeing 1.8 coming straight out of the White House. So when the stimulus gets packaged and put together, there's so many components that are going into it, and each of these components the Democrats and the Republicans are arguing about. So hopefully the market is expecting that this final $1.8 trillion package is just going to be approved and everyone's going to be happy about it. Now, coming into this following week, it's going to be especially volatile if there's any news about the package similar to what happened this week. If we see anything about negotiations going bad, going south, and they're not going to agree to it, you're going to see the market go down. If you see that Democrats approve, because this was a White House/Republican issued $1.8 trillion package, if they see any approval from the Democrats, you are going to see the markets spike up again. So be prepared for that. Come Monday, who really knows who's going to say what, but this is going to be a very word-of-mouth driven market for the next month to come. Drop a comment on what your thoughts are on what you think is going to happen with regards to the stimulus package. Do you think that the Democrats are going to reject it? Do you think they're going to amend it? And then do you think the White House is going to approve it? Or do you think it's just going to completely get dismantled altogether? News that did also come out this week was that there was a kind of a double whammy effect on Tuesday where a lot of the big major tech companies are getting attacked even more with antitrust lawsuits, and the House and the Senate were even threatening to dismantle certain aspects of their companies, which is typically not good news for them. So on Tuesday, we did see an even sharper decline in the big tech stocks, which is why the Nasdaq got hit the hardest on Tuesday compared to the three indices. So they're more than likely going to try to pursue some sort of action against these major corporations, these big tech companies. But as I've mentioned before, they typically don't end up getting enough evidence, or they the big tech companies managed to defend themselves well enough to the point where they can't legally proceed with a dismantling of a corporation or a potential lawsuit. So stay tuned for that. I'm definitely going to monitor that and keep you guys updated on anything that happens with antitrust lawsuits. Upcoming this week, we also have the biggest banks in the United States reporting their earnings. And if you remember my last video where I discussed the bank earnings and how well they did, remember to recall that the big major corporations that generate money through trading activities, through asset management, and through execution services, those are the banks that typically do very well when markets are volatile because they're generating all of those fees and they're generating money through their little small hedge funds that they have. So keep in mind of that going in. Some of the smaller regional banks that are strictly dependent on having deposits and issuing out loans, they are really dependent on the overall economy, and if many people are defaulting on loans, then those little guys do get hurt. So long story short, the big banks do well during times like this. The small banks, you're going to have to pick and choose which ones you think are going to do well, but more than likely they're not going to be seeing this massive rise in income from trading and execution services. That's all I got this week for this week's WTF report. As usual, if there's anything I missed or anything you want to talk about, drop a comment below. Most important, give this video a thumbs up, give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can stay as informed as possible. Thank you guys. I'll see you next week.